Why married men want the one they can't have. Have you ever noticed his gaze getting lost for a few seconds longer on that woman who passed by? Or notice how he mentions that coworker with an odd frequency? Maybe you do everything right. You're beautiful, you're smart, you're dedicated. But you still feel like there's something or someone occupying a space in their mind that should be yours alone. The truth hurts, but it needs to be told. It's not about you. It never was. There is a dark secret in the male psyche that makes married men desire exactly what they can't have. And the more you try to be perfect, the more you give yourself, the stronger this desire for the other becomes. Carl Jung discovered something disturbing about it decades ago, but no one had the courage to tell women. Over the next few minutes, you'll understand what's really going on in his head, why the forbidden is so irresistible to men, and most importantly, what it reveals about him, not about you. 1. The comfort trap. Why your dedication can drive you away. The male mind works in a bizarre way when it comes to desire. The more available you are, the more sure he is that you are his, the less that primal flame is lit. It seems unfair, and it is. But there is an explanation that goes beyond simple ingratitude. When you first met, there was tension. He didn't know if you would reciprocate, if you would agree to go out with him, if you would kiss him that night. Every message you took a long time to respond. Every time you were busy, every moment of uncertainty created powerful brain chemistry. His brain was releasing dopamine in droves because the outcome was unpredictable. Conquering you was a challenge. Now, you are there. Always. Predictable. He knows that you're going to cook dinner, that you're going to be in bed next to him, that you're going to forgive your failures. The security that should be comforting becomes, paradoxically, numbing. The human brain is addicted to novelty, to challenge, to uncertainty. When everything becomes too right, the mind begins to wander. Jung talked about it from another angle. He said that the man projects an internal image called anima on his partner, the feminine part of his soul. At the beginning of the relationship, you were pure mystery. He projected on this blank canvas everything he fantasized about the feminine, seduction, magic, unpredictability. But over time, you became real, human, with defects, routines, bad mood in the morning. The real woman replaces the fantasy, and that's where the danger lies. Because the anima, this internal image, is still alive within him. She doesn't disappear just because he got married. And when a stranger appears, someone he knows nothing about, someone who didn't ask him to do the dishes or complained that he left the wet towel on the floor, that image finds a new blank canvas on which to project itself. It's not that the other is better than you. In fact, it doesn't even have to be special. What matters is that it is unknown. He can project onto her all the magic that has been lost in routine. She's not real yet. It is pure possibility. And possibility is addictive. Their dedication, their constant presence, their predictability, everything that should be valued, ends up creating the opposite of desire. Male desire often feeds on distance, not proximity, of mystery, not of transparency, of conquest, not of guaranteed possession. It's cruel, but it's the unvarnished truth about how many men's psyches work. They want what they haven't fully conquered yet, even when they already have everything at home. 2. The ghost woman, who she really represents. That woman he can't get out of his head is not a real person. Make that very clear right away. It is a ghost, a projection, an empty canvas where he draws everything he misses. Not in you, but in himself. Jung called this anima, the feminine energy that every man carries within himself. This energy represents everything that is mysterious, emotional, creative, and unpredictable. When a man does not integrate this part of himself, when he lives only in the rational, in the controlled, in the predictable, this internal feminine energy is repressed, and then it starts to appear outside, usually in the form of women who fascinate him for no apparent reason. The other woman, the unreachable one, represents everything he has lost contact with. It symbolizes freedom when he feels trapped. It symbolizes adventure when your life has become routine. It symbolizes passion when he feels emotionally dead. But here's the trick. If he really conquered this woman, if she became real, available, predictable, it would lose all charm, because what he wants is not her. It is the fantasy he projected onto her. You can be the most amazing woman in the world, and yet he will fantasize about someone else, because this fantasy was never about comparison. It was about him running away from something inside himself. Maybe it's the pressure of being a provider, of being strong, of having to pretend that everything is fine. Maybe it's the fear of his own mortality, of the endless routine, of the feeling that life is passing and he's stuck. The ghost woman is perfect precisely because she does not exist. She will never disappoint. It will never grow old. You'll never have bad breath in the morning or cellulite on your thighs. She's eternally young, eternally available in his mind, eternally interesting. It's an illusion so powerful that no real woman can compete. And you know what's most disturbing? The more perfect you try to be to compete with that shadow, the more you feed his need to fantasize, because you become even more real, more human, more imperfect. And the ghost remains there, untouched, unreachable, perfect. It represents everything that real life cannot offer. Absence of responsibility, absence of conflict, absence of reality. This woman he can't have is actually an unresolved part of his soul. It is the youth that he has lost. It is the spontaneity that adult life has stolen. It is the version of himself that was left behind when he took on responsibilities, married, had children, became a family man. It is the path not trodden, life not lived. And as long as he doesn't make peace with his own choices, with his own life, this feminine shadow will continue to appear disguised as other women. There's always a reason behind forbidden desire. In the Jung Method, you'll uncover the hidden patterns that pull you toward unavailable men and how to finally break free. Link pinned in the first comment. 3. Why the forbidden is more exciting than you. There is something in the human brain that lights up when it hears the word no, especially in the male brain. The more something is forbidden, inaccessible, wrong, the more desirable it becomes. It's not logical, it's not fair, but it's biological and psychological at the same time. Think like this. When you tell a child not to touch something, what does he want to do? Stir. When you put up a no entry sign, what do you feel like doing? Enter. The forbidden has a different flavor. There's adrenaline, there is danger. And danger activates primitive parts of the brain that safety will never activate. You represent security. You are the right choice. The decision approved by society, by family, by logic. He chose you, promised to stay with you, built a life by your side. But the other is pure transgression. It's the possibility of breaking the rules without actually breaking them, because he doesn't have to do anything, just fantasize. And fantasizing doesn't count as betrayal, right? Wrong. But that's how his mind justifies it. The male brain, especially, is programmed to seek novelty and conquest. When he was conquering you, every breakthrough was a victory. Each kiss was an achievement. Each step of the relationship was new territory. But now, he has already conquered everything. The game is over. And men, more than women, need to feel that they are in some kind of game, some kind of challenge. The forbidden woman offers just that, an infinite game. He'll never really win you over, so he'll never lose interest. She is always in the conquest phase, always in the most exciting moment, while you are in the maintenance phase, the routine, the real work. It's like comparing the honeymoon to the 10th year of marriage. It's not fair, but his mind doesn't care about justice. He cares about stimulus. There is also the psychological factor of scarcity. Everything that is rare seems more valuable. Diamonds are not as useful as water, but they cost millions because they are rare. You are always available. She doesn't. You are abundant in his life. It is scarce, and the primitive brain values scarcity above almost everything. That's why people line up for limited edition stuff even when they don't need them. Jung would say that this attraction to the forbidden is also the attraction to one's own shadow, to the dark part of the personality that everyone has but tries to hide. When a married man desires another woman, he is, in part, desiring his own rebelliousness, his own darkness, his own capacity to transgress. It's not so much about the woman. It's about him allowing himself to be bad for a few seconds in his own mind. And here's the part that no one talks about. The more you try to be the perfect wife, the more you eliminate any trace of unpredictability, the more you move away from the forbidden category and into the guaranteed category. Guaranteed is safe. Guaranteed is necessary. But guaranteed it will never be exciting like the forbidden. And that's a bitter truth that every married woman eventually faces. Isn't they beer than four? When you become invisible in his eyes. There's a quiet moment in many marriages when something terrible happens. You become invisible. Not literally, of course. He still sees you preparing coffee, taking care of things, fulfilling your role. But he doesn't see you anymore. Not the way I saw it before. You have become part of the furniture, functional, necessary, but no longer fascinating. This happens gradually, so slowly that neither of you notices it until it is already complete. In the beginning, he noticed when you changed your hair, when you wore that blouse he liked, when you smiled in a different way. He paid attention. But over time, his body, his presence, his gestures have become so familiar that his brain simply stops registering. It's basic neuroscience. The human brain ignores what's constant and familiar to save energy. Meanwhile, any new woman who crosses his path gets undivided attention. Because it's new. Her brain wakes up and pays attention. He notices every detail. The different scent, the way he laughs, the shape of his face. It's not that she's prettier than you. It's just that it's new. And new always wins family in the war for male attention. You can be more beautiful than ever, more interesting, more fulfilled. But if you're constant, if you're predictable, if you're part of his routine, you become landscape. And landscape does not arouse desire. Landscape is comfort, not excitement. You turned the comfortable sofa in the living room. Necessary? Yes. Beloved? Perhaps. Desired? Not so much. What makes this even more painful is that you're probably trying harder than ever. Taking care of the house, the family, him. Trying to be attractive, interesting, present. But the more you give yourself to that role, the more you merge with it. You stop being a separate, intriguing person with a life of your own. You become his wife. And wife, in the minds of many men, occupies a different category of desirable woman. Jung talked about this when discussing the persona, the social mask we wear. When you fully assume the persona of wife and mother, you can lose touch with other parts of yourself. The seductive woman, the mysterious woman, the unpredictable woman are buried under layers of responsibility and routine. And if you no longer feel those parts in yourself, how will he feel them in you? There is also the factor that many men mentally divide women into categories, those who are to marry and those who are to desire. It's primitive, it's problematic, but it's there in the cultural programming of many of them. The wife goes to a safe, respectable, maternal mental box. The other women are in another box, where sexual desire can exist freely, without guilt or responsibility. When you realize that you have become invisible to him in this way, the first reaction is to try to get attention, but usually in the wrong way, by being more available, more dedicated, more perfect. And it only gets worse, because you're trying to solve the problem using the same energy that created the problem. You're trying to be more landscape when you should be being less landscape. The hard truth is that many men only see you for real when they think they can lose you. When you demonstrate that you have a life of your own interests, when you're not always there waiting for him. Then, suddenly, you leave the furniture category and go back to the woman category. It's sad, but it's real. 5. The game he still wants to play. Men are deep down hunters. Not food, not anymore, but of challenge, of conquest, of victory. It is part of the male mental wiring to seek, to pursue, to conquer. And here's the catch. When he marries you, the game is officially over. He won. You are his. The hunt is over. And what happens to a hunter when there's nothing left to hunt? He gets bored, restless. He begins to look for the next challenge, the next achievement, even if unconsciously. Even if he loves you. Even if he'll never actually do anything about it. His mind starts playing games on its own. The other woman offers exactly what you can no longer offer: uncertainty. Would she look at him? Would he have a chance? What would it be like to try to win it over? These are questions that keep the game alive, while you, who have already been conquered, no longer offer these questions. You are sure, and it is certainly the killer of male desire. It doesn't mean that you need to play emotional games with him for the rest of your life. That would be exhausting and pathetic. But it means understanding that masculine nature feeds on challenge. When everything is too easy, when there's nothing left to conquer, when you're guaranteed, something inside him falls asleep. And it is in this sleep that fantasies about other women begin. Think about how he acts in other areas of life. At work, in hobbies, in sports. He likes goals, challenges, feeling that he is evolving, achieving something. When the relationship becomes pure maintenance, without growth, without challenge, without novelty, he stops investing emotional energy there. The energy goes where the challenge is. And if the challenge is not at home, it will be elsewhere. Sometimes in my career, in hobbies. Sometimes dangerously, in fantasies about other women. The woman he can't have represents the perfect game. A game he never loses because he never really plays. He maintains the fantasy, the possibility, the idea that maybe, in another life, in other circumstances, and that's enough. That keeps that part of him alive. That part that needs to feel that it's still in the game, that it's still a player, that it still has the ability to conquer. Jung would talk about this in terms of the archetype of the hero. Every man sees himself, on some level, as the hero of his own story. And heroes need missions, dragons to kill, princesses to save. When he gets married, when life becomes routine, he stops feeling like a hero. He had become just an ordinary man, fulfilling obligations. And the anima, that mysterious feminine energy inside him, is locked away. When a new woman appears, his psyche sees a chance to be a hero again, to conquer, to win. The tragedy is that many men never mature beyond this primal need for conquest. They spend their whole lives looking for the next game, the next achievement, not realizing that the real game should be self-knowledge, depth, real connection. But this requires psychological maturity that many never develop. It's easier to fantasize about conquering another woman than it is to do the hard work of conquering yourself. Or 6. The void that no woman can fill. Here's a truth that will hurt, but it needs to be told. No matter how hard you try, no matter how perfect you are, you're never going to fill the void that exists inside of it, because this emptiness has nothing to do with you. It never did. Many men carry a hole in their souls. It can come from childhood, it can come from the social pressure to be a man. It can come from the lack of real connection with oneself. This emptiness constantly whispers that something is missing, that life should be more exciting, more meaningful, more something. And the easiest way to silence that whisper is to project the solution onto a woman. Usually, the wrong woman, the unreachable. If he got that woman, then he would be happy. If he had gone out with that girl at school, his life would be different. If he were single again, he could conquer whoever he wanted. These are fantasies that seem to be about sexual desire, but are actually about existential escapism. He's running away from the void, not looking for a real replacement. Jung called this the encounter with the shadow. Every human being has parts rejected, denied, buried in their own psyche. Emotions you can't feel, desires you can't admit, versions of yourself you've never allowed yourself to be. When these parts are repressed for too long, they begin to leak out in distorted ways. One of them is through obsession with other women. He may not even realize it, but when he fantasizes about the other, he is really fantasizing about freedom, about not having responsibilities, about going back to being that kid who thought life would be an endless adventure, about being seen again as special, desirable, interesting, about escaping the feeling of being just another ordinary man leading an ordinary life. And here's the wicked. You can be the most amazing woman on the planet, and yet he'll feel that emptiness. Because emptiness is not about the lack of something external. It's about the lack of something internal. It's about him not knowing who he really is when he takes off all the social masks. It's about him never having made peace with his own choices, with his own mortality, with the fact that life is finite, and he chose that path. Many women enter a destructive cycle trying to fill this void. They become more available, more attractive, more understanding. They try to be everything to him. But the more they try, the more they feel the emptiness grow. Because it's not their job. It never was. This is the inner work that only he can do. And as long as he doesn't, he will continue to design the solution in external fantasies. The liberating truth, though bitter, is you can't save him from himself. You can't be interesting enough, new enough, perfect enough to compete with the existential void, because emptiness will always create new fantasies, new versions of what is missing. Today she is that coworker. Tomorrow it's the waitress at the restaurant. Then it's someone on the internet. It's not about these women. It's about him avoiding looking inward. Jung said that until we confront our shadow, it will control our life behind the scenes. The man who compulsively fantasizes about other women has not yet conquered his own psyche. He is trapped in an eternal adolescent, searching outside for what he can only find inside. And no woman, neither you nor the fancy, can give him that. Only he can. 7. Fantasy as escape. What he's really avoiding. When a married man spends too much time fantasizing about other women, it's rarely about sex. It's about escape. He's running away from something much bigger, scarier, more real. And fantasy is the easiest escape door. What exactly is he running from? It's up to the man, but it's usually the same things. The pressure of being a provider, the fear of failing, the feeling of being trapped, the overwhelming responsibility of caring for other people, the silent terror that life is passing by and he's not really living. They are invisible weights that he carries without ever talking about them. So instead of facing these difficult emotions, instead of having honest conversations about his fears and frustrations, he escapes. And the fantasy about another woman is the perfect escape. For a few minutes, he's not the tired husband, the overworked father, the man with bills to pay. He is free. He's young again. It is desirable. He is powerful. The other woman in his head doesn't demand anything. She doesn't ask him to fix the faucet. She doesn't complain that he spends too much time on his cell phone. She doesn't demand emotional presence. It is pure pleasure without responsibility. It's the alternate life where he doesn't have to be an adult. And that, for a man drowning in bonds, is irresistible. Jung would talk about this as the escape from the self, the true and deep self. Many men spend their entire lives wearing masks. The mask of the perfect husband, the devoted father, the successful professional. But underneath the masks, who are they really? Many don't even know. And look inside, take off the masks, face who you really are. This scares more than anything. So they run away. They run away to work, to obsessive hobbies, to alcohol, to pornography, to fantasies about other women. Anything to not have to sit quietly and face the truth. They don't know who they are. They don't know if they are happy. They don't know if they have chosen the right life. And facing these questions seems more painful than continuing to flee. The fantasy about the unreachable woman also offers something that real life does not. An open ending. He will never conquer her, so he will never find out that she is also imperfect, that she also ages, that she would also have expectations and make demands. It remains eternally in the phase of possibility, and possibility is always more beautiful than reality. There is something deeply sad about all this, because while he's running away into these fantasies, he's missing out on the chance for real connection. Connection with yourself, with your children, with yourself. He is missing out on the life that is happening right in front of him, while dreaming of a life that will never exist. It's like being in a delicious restaurant but spending all the time looking at the menu of another restaurant you'll never visit. And you know what's worse? Many men do this their whole lives without ever realizing it. They spend decades fantasizing, escaping, avoiding. And when they finally get old, when fantasies don't work anymore, when it's too late, then they wake up, and they realize that they have wasted the only life they had running away from ghosts. The tragedy is not that they desired other women. It's just that they were never really present anywhere. Kate, what it reveals about him, and how to protect himself. After everything we've seen, one thing is clear. When a married man can't stop thinking about the woman he can't have, It reveals a lot more about him than it does about you or the other. It reveals emotional immaturity. It reveals an inability to deal with reality. It reveals escape from one's own shadow. It reveals a fear of real intimacy. A mature man who has done the necessary inner work does not get caught up in these fantasies. He can notice other women, of course. He's human. But he doesn't live in that place. It does not feed these fantasies. He does not use other women as an escape from his own life, because he has already faced his inner emptiness. He has already integrated his shadow. He has already made peace with his choices. When he becomes obsessed with the unattainable, he is showing that he has not grown psychologically. It is still in the adolescent stage of idealization and fantasy. You still haven't learned that real love is not that crazy chemistry at the beginning, but the daily choice to be present, to build something true, to face life as it is, and not as fantasy wants it to be. And here's what you need to understand. This is not your problem to solve. You can't do his inner work. You can't force it to mature. You can't compete with ghosts that live only in his head. The more you try, the more you lose yourself in the process. So, how to protect yourself? First, stop blaming yourself. Stop thinking that if you were more beautiful, more interesting, more perfect, that would change. It wouldn't change, because the problem is not you. It never was. It is his inability to be really present in his own life. Second, maintain your own identity. Don't completely dissolve into the role of wife. Keep being you, with your interests, your friends, your dreams, your life. When you have a life of your own, two things happen. You're less available for him to use as an outlet, and you become more interesting because you're a whole person, not an extension of him. Third, set clear boundaries. If he's constantly fantasizing about others, talking about others, you don't have to accept that as normal. You can talk. You can say that it hurts you. It may require real presence, not crumbs of attention while his mind is elsewhere. And if he can't give that, you have choices to make. Fourth, take care of your own psyche. Jung said that we need to integrate our own shadow. What parts of you are being denied? What versions of you were buried in the marriage? Reconnect with them. Not to win him back, but not to get completely lost in this unhealthy dynamic. And fifth, most importantly, know when it's time to leave. There is a difference between a man who occasionally notices other women and a man who lives in chronic fantasy. There is a difference between someone working on their problems and someone who does not even recognize that they have problems. If you're with someone who's never going to wake up, who's never going to do the inside work, who's going to spend their whole life running away, you are not obliged to stay and watch. Your life is too precious to be wasted competing with ghosts. You deserve someone present, someone who chooses you every day not because you're perfect, but because he's mature enough to value the real rather than chase the imaginary. And if he's not that person, the question isn't how to make him change. The question is, how long will you wait?